Hello and welcome into Ansible Deep Dive and Multi-Vendor Networking. This video course is provided to you by orhanergen.net. In this module, we're going to automate Fortinet product, which is FortiGate FortiOS, using Ansible. So first of all, the lab setup that we're going to use is a single FortiGate that runs a major release of version 7, connected to the management, have a management IP as you can see, installed and enabled within Eve. Then there is another port that is connected to a layer 2 switch or maybe a normal bridge. So I didn't use a Cisco VIOS switch, I just used a normal network connection that is built in within Eve. The type is a bridge, so right click edit, you're gonna see that this is a normal network, the type is a bridge. I just changed the icon, give it a name, and that's it, to give us like a bridge capable network. Then I have connected two virtual PCs to this switch. Each one is already installed with Eve. We're gonna just use this with normal test, normal configuration based on IP. Of course, you may install a real Windows 10 or whatever client that you wish to do the authentication with the FortiGate, but in our lab this is a very simple automation, so we're gonna stick with the VPC. Now, regarding the configuration that you are required to do with the FortiGate command line, it is so simple. Whenever you download the image from I think support.fortinet.com, I think you could download the image freely because they will give you 14 days of free licenses. You can use it, so in this 14 days you could do whatever you wish with this FortiGate. Whenever the 14 days will finish, just delete it, wipe it, reinstall it, and that's it. There is another trick of making the clock backward, but I'm not recommending this one. So I'm gonna log in using the default admin and password, but I have created another username for myself. I will log in with it. Now, the first thing that you may do is configuring the IP address on port 1. By default, port 1 will act as a DHCP client, but in our case, no, we want to have its own static IP address and add a default route to the gateway of 192.168.96.2. So let's open this text file. In this text file there is all of the configuration that you want to have regarding your lab setup, initial lab setup. So this is just like a get system interface physical. It's like a Cisco show command. You could set the host name, then doing the static IP address within the interface. So config system interface. You may edit port 1, the mode, change it to static, give it an IP address within your range, and by default it allow only HTTPS. I also append the access of HTTP. Maybe you want to use the normal HTTP, and I quote, sometimes in the unlicensed trial version of the virtual machine, HTTPS will not work. So basically we must allow the HTTP to have it in the interface. Finally, we will just add a default route. So config router static, edit 0, because the first sequential number in the indexing is 0. I'm just specifying the gateway. The destination will be like 000/quad0, and the port will be port 1. So that's all of the configuration that I will invoke into this FortiGate. You may do it changing the port, the IPs based on your lab setup. So to verify, you may do the get or show command. So this is the first one. I have an IP address, and that's it. So this is for the lab setup regarding the FortiGate itself. Now, regarding what things that you should apply and configure inside of Ansible is one thing, which is a collection. The collection named is FortiOS. So Ansible Galaxy FortiOS. Ansible have a great documentation in readdocs.io. It is a very human readable and familiar. It's like a clone from the Ansible documentation, but now it is more colorful, it is more standard. In most of the cases, when you go and search for a Python package or any thing that deals with automation or anything, you will see that is under the readthedocs.io. It's like a standard form of the docs. So this is the module. If you could just go into the Ansible Galaxy Hub and install it, it is very simple to do. So just Ansible Galaxy and install FortiOS collection. I'm just gonna search it. This is the Ansible Galaxy Hub, and this is the FortiOS latest collection. You could just install it using this command. So Ansible Galaxy collection and install Fortinet.FortiOS. I already installed it in my virtual environment, but you could just copy it and paste it with a sudo privileged user within your virtual environment terminal, like this. It will begin the installation, and that's all. Regarding the documentation in this collection, one of the best collections that I saw with Ansible is the Fortinet one. They spent a lot of documentation and modules within this collection. So it is the opposite of the normal Cisco iOS, because it's have like a generic one, only like so few approaches, only SSH, maybe a RESTconf or a netconf, but with not in-depth documentation. But in this one, no, there is a lot of modules inside this. So mainly we have multiple modules. We are going to use the first three because those are the most famous one. The last two, the generic and exported, is not so important now, but with the automation, we're going to use the configuration module. As the name implies, we're going to do the configuration. Then we're going to use the monitor modules. The monitor is like going and having the real information from the device. It's not getting the configuration. No, I want to have the status. I want to have the real-time data. I want to see the logs of the traffic. So this is the monitor module. For the facts gathering module, it's like going and having the configuration, like doing a show command in Cisco. Here we're gonna use this one to gather a specific type of facts. We're gonna spend a lot of time gathering and analyzing the facts. So each one of those have a sub-indexing of one. So if we clicked on maybe the configuration modules, you're gonna see that you have a ton of configuration modules inside this one. Maybe this is a firewall address. I'm going to configure the address. I'm going to configure the ISDB. I'm going to configure the interfaces, the policies, the NTP, the FortiGuard, the syslog. It's like a lot, and they keep adding to it. And also it supports every latest release of Fortinet that's gonna update its database with. So we're gonna walk into each one of those and see what will happen. Now, the last thing before we start, we're gonna log in into the FortiGate GUI using a web browser. So I already logged in. This is the release that I'm using. So it is version 7.0.3. I have a local user on it. I also allowed the HTTP, HTTPS, whatever configuration that you want to use. It is unlicensed, so I'm using the same VM that you're gonna download freely from Fortinet website and could play within Eve. So first of all, a quick overview. This is one thing that we're gonna use. Then I just create a system user, so system administrator. I have two accounts. The first one is the admin, which is a super admin, and of course the most loved one, the easiest one, Cisco. Yes, I'm using Cisco inside Fortinet. That's okay. Now we're gonna authenticate using the Cisco, or even we're gonna authenticate using another approach in this video, on the next one. So regarding the interfaces configuration, I have only configured the basic one using the CLI port 1. This is the IP address that I configured inside the command line, and I also by default ping HTTPS, SSH, and FMG access is also allowed. I only added the HTTP to support this kind of virtual machine deployment because in some cases unlicensed trialed version of this virtual machine will not allow or will not support the HTTPS authentication or automation. So I already allowed the HTTP. Now let's jump back into VS Code and see what could we start with the automation. It is already installed, that's okay. And this one, open an integrated terminal, close this one, and the Fortinet. In the Fortinet we have a good number of the playbooks, but before we jump into the playbook, we're gonna go and see what is the inventory configuration that we have. So regarding the inventory configuration that we have, the same approach that we did with Cisco is like this. We're gonna define the same host, but as two devices. So it is the same IP, but with two. So firewall FGT7 and firewall 1 FGT7 API. So the main differences is the first one will use the normal username and a password SSH login. So this is good. That's we know it. This is the admin username and this is the admin password. So feel free to change the password and save it in the file as you did. So now, what is the variable? Ansible connection will be HTTP API. This is the API that you're gonna use. So this username and password, you could use it with SSH, with the HTTPS login. So it will be used using the normal one. The collection will be used. So this will be used by the Fortinet collection that we installed. And of course the network OS will be fortinet.fortios.fortios. This is the long code for the network OS regarding the FortiGate device. It's running FortiOS. Now regarding the API, the connection type will be HTTP API, same as we did, but the network OS will not be Fortinet, it will be RESTconf. Yes, we're gonna use RESTconf again, but we will not go deep with it as we did previously. No, it will be just a couple of maybe two playbooks, and that's all. The another variables that we're gonna use is by default RESTconf, and the Ansible collection will use the HTTPS force with SSL and port 443. In this case, I provided this kind of variable because sometimes the VM, as I mentioned, will not support the HTTPS, so you could do it unsecurely backward to normal HTTP. How you may do so, just to specify those three variables. So use SSL as false, validate certs as false, and the HTTP API port is 80. Or you could change your HTTP API port, because in most of the real world deployment of the FortiGate, maybe the management port will be different. So it is not port 80, it is not 443, maybe it is different. So you could change it from here. So if you recall the RESTconf root back in Cisco, it was like data or something. Here I don't have a root, so it will be empty. And the authentication type regarding this one will be a token. How I may do the authentication using a token? Regarding the token that you could see here, and here. So this is one method of the authentication. The token one, we must generate a token with a specific username within the FortiGate itself. So how you may do so, because this token is changeable, so you must change it. You cannot use it the same. So how you may do so, just jump back into the web UI of the FortiGate, go into System, Admin Profiles. The first thing that you must create is an admin profile. Some will ask why I could use the super admin, the default one. No, you cannot do it with the REST API user. You must create your own admin profile. The easiest way to do it is just create one, call it maybe API full, Okay, select all, read write. That's it. I have created an admin profile. Then I'm gonna create an administrator, but take care, don't just click create a new, but click create a new REST API admin. So this is a special kind of user. This is not a normal user that you will use like a local password or using like a remote server authentication server like TACAX or Radius. No, or not even an SSO admin. No, it's a REST API admin. So what is the differences? Just give it a name. Maybe I will call it Ansible. I don't want to use the PKI group. If you want to just trust hosts, you could just type the trust hosts that will only be allowed to use this authentication. You could do multiple entries, so this authentication will come only from this one. And don't forget the administrator profile to be the API full. Always use the one that you have created, not the default one, because as you can see, the default one doesn't have the super admin only, read only, and no access. You will have a token, new API key. You could generate it only once and see it only once. So copy it. I already copied it. Go back into the inventory and paste it. So I'm gonna just select it, do Control H. I'm gonna change it. And that's it. It is changed. Control S, saved, that's it. So that's all of the lab preparation and overview that we could do in this video. See you on the next one.